and the character just sits there and refuses to do what you want them to do.
Last week, one of the things that we mentioned we were going to try to work on at some point was getting to know the characters in our story. And that was our original plan on the progress we wanted to make this week. And thankfully, at least before I spent too much time on that, I don't know about you, how much time you spent on getting to know your character. But before we got too far into it, we realized that that wasn't the best first step. And what we wanted to do was actually figure out our overarching story arc, and then once we figured out that, we would know a little bit more about our characters' motivations and who they needed to be in order to fulfill their part in the story arc.
Yeah, I think my role, I said I was going to soak in the story from the perspective of one of the main supporting characters, and I got partway into it and realized I don't really know this character very well because I don't know what role they're playing in the main story because the story itself has some holes.
Yes. The story was something that I started writing a long time ago, tried to fill in the rest of it recently, and I just realized that there was a whole lot more story that needed to be written, not just like written out on paper, but like the whole story arc, figuring out where exactly that went before we figured out too much about the characters. And so instead, for this past week, we've been doing some brainstorming, figuring out what are some possible story arcs we can do, what are some possible motivators for the villain, what causes them to do the thing that they're trying to do, which, do we want to kind of say a little bit about what that is?
I think we can give just a little bit of a hint about the general genre.
Genre? Okay, so science fiction? A little more than that?
We'll go a little more than
All
that,
right.
if you're comfortable.
Okay, let's see. There's going to be time travel, and we're thinking something about somebody from the future traveling back to the present time to eliminate our main character. And so some of what we're trying to deal with is, what is the villain's motivator to go to the lengths necessary to eliminate somebody? Figuring out what the conflict is between the two of them in the future. Why is it that this person in particular is the guy that we need to eliminate? Or that the villain says that he needs to eliminate?
And one of the things that I think has been fascinating about just this week in particular is the fact that you already had some story written, and then in the combination of our comments to each other in asynchronous communication plus the in-person real-time communication, recognizing that some of those previous ideas need to be held very loosely.
Yes. I had written, because when something involves time travel, you have to figure out how the time travel works, and one of the things that I think needs to be held loosely is figuring out what that time travel dynamic is. There's going to be one part that I think what is going to make time travel unique to my story, that I don't know of any other story that had that specific time travel dynamic, and now in some of the brainstorms that we've come up with, that specific dynamic isn't going to work if we decide to go down a certain route. And so beyond that, villain motivations, certain plot points, entire chapters that I had written are likely not going to be used in the final product, just because we're getting a better idea of what the story arc is, and it's completely different than what I had thought it was going to be years ago.
As I've been reading and studying and preparing, I'm going through a Coursera.com course on storytelling concentration, I think is the name of it. But that's one of the things that they emphasize, is that sometimes you're going to write part of your story and you fall in love with it and you realize it's just not working. One of the fascinating things is when they talk about writing a character and I need my character to do a certain action in order to follow the plot that I'm trying to craft, and the character just sits there and refuses to do what you want them to do.
and that's something what we're dealing with right now and coming up with the plot, and I think we're going to deal with it even more in the future as we're actually writing, after we get to know the characters and we get to know them, and this is not the type of character that would do this specific thing. Now hopefully once we're in the actual writing process, the character's refusal is not for major plot points, but for the minor things of how we get from point A to point B, and not that he just flat out refuses to go to point B. I'm not sure yet if that's something that's going to happen. I don't know. This is a journey for us to figure out what are the challenges, and we're glad that you've joined us on this journey, and hopefully this can be helpful for you figuring out what the challenges are in writing.
And one of the things that I think is exciting about the way that we're working together is that as we're exploring these different plot points, sometimes our conversation with each other is, I don't know, this just sounds a little bit weak. We need to go in a different direction with this. And that's where some of that holding on to things loosely becomes important. But then the flip side is also true, where you'll propose something of, ooh, I like the way that's going, and then it inspires a new thought and we can build on each other's thoughts. So the co-authorship dynamic has been a very fulfilling dynamic for me.
Right, and I think we can figure out how the plot is going to work and brainstorm ideas much better together than separately, because one of the things that we've done in our most recent collaboration together is look at some of the brainstorm plot ideas that we had done separately and go through them together and get some of the ideas of what we were thinking. And there were times in, I believe, both of ours ideas that we had come up with that the other person was able to kind of suggest a continuation of that, and here's how we can explore that potential plot line a little bit deeper, and here's a better picture of what that might look like.
So if you're on a journey, you're thinking about writing your own story, becoming an author, these are some of the things that I think you'll probably experience. If you're already a successful author, maybe this becomes a bit of nostalgia for you. Either way, as Nathan said, I'm glad that you're following along in our journey, and I hope this can be an encouragement to you.
I don't know of anything else that I have. Do you have anything else that you would like to say?
I think we covered everything we planned to say. So, once again, if you're interested in following this journey, what should they do?
They should like, subscribe. If you have any friends that you think would be interested in a channel like this, any friends who are interested in writing, who are just curious about what the journey of writing is like, go ahead and share this with them. Hopefully we can be of some help to some people who are in a similar place as we are, trying to figure out how to go about planning before you even put pen to paper or hands to keyboard. But just the whole plot exercise of figuring out what the plot is going to look like. How do you go about that? If you have some friends who are interested in that, share it with them, and hopefully we can maybe build a community of people who are trying to go through the same struggles we are, and we can help each other out. Hopefully we can help you, and if you have ideas, drop them in the comments. Maybe they'll help us, maybe they'll help somebody else who's joining us along this journey.
And we'll see you again next week.
See you next week.